I was the kind of husband who tried to love in actions, not speeches. Joel Price, 38 years old, IT engineer for a mid-sized Boston tech firm, and apparently the biggest fool in Massachusetts. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Every night, I stayed late at the office, telling myself the extra hours were worth it if they made Marissa's life easier. I paid our bills 2 weeks early, fixed problems before she even noticed them, and kept promising that once this project finished, once that deadline passed, I'd finally have more time for us. To make up for coming home exhausted, I compensated in every way I knew how. Fresh flowers appeared on our kitchen counter so often the vases never had time to dry. I bought gifts we couldn't really afford just to see her smile for 30 seconds. At least once a month, I planned what I called a real date, dinner somewhere nice, maybe a show, something memorable because I wanted her to feel chosen, even when I was running on 4 hours of sleep. When Marissa complained that I worked too much, I swallowed my pride and told myself it was temporary. She'd roll her eyes when I missed dinner again, sigh dramatically when I fell asleep during movies, but I believed she understood. I believed she was happy with our life in our modest colonial in Brookline, with the mortgage I busted my ass to pay, and the comfortable routine we'd built over 6 years of marriage. Our house was everything I dreamed of as a kid growing up in Southie. Clean white siding, a small front garden that Marissa tended on weekends, neighbors who waved when they saw us. Mrs. Klein next door always complimented my lawn maintenance. Tom across the street borrowed my tools and actually returned them. It felt like success, like I'd finally made it somewhere that mattered. Marissa worked in HR for a marketing company downtown. She was beautiful in that effortless way that made other men notice her when we went out together. Auburn hair that caught light perfectly, green eyes that could switch from warm to cutting in seconds, and a laugh that made everyone around her want to be funnier. I felt lucky every day that she'd chosen me over the parade of more exciting guys who'd tried to date her. She had her complaints, sure. I wasn't spontaneous enough. I didn't express my feelings the way she wanted. I spent too much time thinking about work and not enough time thinking about romance. But I figured every marriage had its rough patches. We'd work through it like adults. We always did. That Tuesday afternoon in October changed everything. For once, there was no emergency at the office, no last-minute crisis that needed my attention until 9 p.m. My boss, Mr. Levin, actually told me to go home early. "You've been burning both ends of the candle, Price. Take an afternoon off." I stopped at the flower shop on Beacon Street and picked up a small bouquet of daisies. Nothing fancy, just something to brighten her day. Then I swung by the little jewelry store where I'd bought her wedding ring and grabbed a silver bracelet I'd been eyeing for weeks. It wasn't expensive, but it was pretty, and I imagined how surprised she'd be when I walked through the door before 5 o'clock for once in my life. The drive home felt different, lighter. I actually noticed the fall colors on the trees lining our street, the way the afternoon sun made everything look golden and peaceful. I rehearsed what I'd say when I surprised her. Maybe we could go out for an early dinner, take a walk around the neighborhood, have one of those easy conversations we used to have when we were dating. Our house looked exactly the same as always, quiet, safe, like nothing could ever be wrong behind those cheerful white walls. I used my key as quietly as possible, wanting to maintain the surprise. The moment I stepped into our front hallway, I heard Marissa's voice from the living room. She was on the phone, laughing in that bright, excited way that meant she was talking to her sister Chloe. I slowed down, planning to wait until she finished her call before making my presence known. That's when the words reached me clearly enough to freeze my blood. "Imagine, my ex did me 3 times today. I'm on top of the world," she was saying, her voice full of pride and satisfaction. "Devin is just so much more present, you know? Like Joel comes home half dead from work and expects me to be grateful for flowers. Devin actually pays attention to what I need." I stood there in my own hallway, holding daisies and a jewelry box, feeling like someone had just explained a joke I'd never understood. "The best part is Joel has no idea," Marissa continued, and I could hear her shifting on the couch, probably curling up in that way she did when she was settling in for a long gossip session. "He's so busy being the perfect provider that he doesn't notice I'm dying of boredom. Devin texted me this morning, and I met him at that hotel on Route 9. God, Chloe, I forgot what it felt like to be with someone who actually wants me." My hands started shaking. The bracelet box felt like it weighed 50 pounds. "Are you sure Joel doesn't suspect anything?" Chloe's voice came through the phone speaker, tinny but clear. "Joel?" Marissa laughed, and the sound cut through me like broken glass. "Joel suspects his computer might have a virus if it takes 3 seconds longer to boot up. He's completely clueless about people. I could probably bring Devin home for dinner and Joel would just ask him about his workout routine." I set the flowers and jewelry down on the hallway table as carefully as if they were made of dynamite. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of late nights and early mornings, and trying to build something worthwhile together. 6 years of believing that love meant sacrifice, that working hard for someone was the same as loving them well. "How long has this been going on?" Chloe asked. 3 months, Marissa said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Ever since I ran into Devin at that coffee shop near work. He looks even better than he did in college, if that's possible, and he's got his own gym now, so he's doing really well for himself. Devin Mason." I remembered him from the stories Marissa used to tell about her college boyfriend, the one who broke up with her senior year to focus on his career, the one she claimed to be completely over, the one she said she'd never want to see again because he'd hurt her so badly. Apparently, she'd gotten over that hurt. "What are you going to do?" Chloe asked. "You can't keep this up forever." "Why not?" Marissa's voice turned sharp, defensive. Joel's never home anyway, and when he is home, he's either fixing something or falling asleep on the couch. At least Devin makes me feel alive. At least with him, I remember what it's like to be desired instead of just appreciated. I closed my eyes and tried to remember how to breathe. Everything I'd thought I knew about my life, about my marriage, about my wife, was crumbling around me like a house made of cards. All those late nights at work, all those hours I'd spent trying to build us a secure future, and she'd been using my absence to destroy everything we'd built. "Just be careful," Chloe said. "Joel might not be the most observant guy in the world, but he's not stupid." "Trust me," Marissa replied. "Joel's too busy being noble and responsible to notice that his wife is getting the best sex of her life from someone else. Besides, what's he going to do? He'd never leave me. He's too invested in being the perfect husband." That's when something inside me snapped. Not into rage, exactly. More like a cable under too much tension finally giving way. I felt a strange, cold clarity settle over me, like I was seeing everything from a great distance. She was right about one thing. I had been too invested in being the perfect husband. Too invested in making her happy, making her comfortable, making her life easier while she made mine into a lie. I picked up the flowers and the jewelry box and walked back to my car as quietly as I'd entered. She never heard me leave. She was too busy laughing about her secret. Too confident in my predictability to imagine that for once in my life, I might surprise her. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at our house. Our house. What a joke. It was her house now. The place where she lived her real life while I worked to pay for it. The place where she probably brought Devin when I was pulling late nights at the office, thinking I was building something meaningful. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Pete. "Beer tonight? You look like you could use one." I typed back, "I need a place to stay. My wife just made me a national joke." Then I drove away from the house I'd thought was home, leaving behind the flowers that would never be given and the bracelet that would never be worn. I didn't look back. There wasn't anything left to see. Pete Kowalski lived in a cluttered apartment above his auto repair shop in Somerville. Ex-Boston PD. Early retirement after taking a bullet in the leg during a domestic violence call gone wrong. Now he fixed cars, drank too much coffee, and served as unpaid therapist to half the guys in the neighborhood who needed someone to listen to their problems. He took one look at my face when I showed up at his door and pointed toward his couch without saying a word. Then he grabbed 2 beers from his refrigerator and settled into his recliner like he was preparing for a long story. "Let me guess," he said, twisting the cap off his beer. "Marissa?" I told him everything. The surprise visit home, the phone call, the 3 months of lies, the hotel on Route 9. Pete listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or shaking his head. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "You know what the worst part is?" I said, staring at the ceiling. She was right about me. I am clueless. I am too busy trying to be noble and responsible. I never saw it coming because I was too busy believing that working hard for someone was the same as loving them. "Bullshit," Pete said. "Working hard for someone is loving them. She's just too selfish to recognize it." 3 months, Pete. 3 months she's been sleeping with this guy, and I never suspected a thing. What kind of husband does that make me? "The trusting kind," Pete said, which isn't a character flaw, no matter what she thinks. I spent that night on Pete's couch, staring at the ceiling and replaying every conversation I'd had with Marissa over the past few months, looking for signs I'd missed, clues I should have picked up on. She'd been happier lately, I realized. More energetic. I'd attributed it to the yoga classes she'd started taking, or maybe the new vitamins she'd been trying. Yoga classes. Right. The next morning, I called in sick to work and sat in Pete's kitchen, drinking coffee and trying to figure out what came next. I could confront her directly, demand an explanation, try to work things out. I could pack my stuff and file for divorce. I could pretend I'd never heard anything and go back to being the oblivious husband she thought I was. Or, Pete said, refilling my coffee cup, You could wake up. What do you mean? I mean, you've been playing defense your whole marriage, working late to make her happy, buying gifts to make up for lost time, apologizing for having a job that pays the bills. When's the last time you did something just because you wanted to do it? I couldn't remember. Here's what I think, Pete continued. Before you decide whether to save this marriage or end it, you should find out exactly what you're dealing with. Knowledge is power, Joel. Right now, she's got all the knowledge and you've got none. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting you stop being the good guy for 5 minutes and start being the smart guy. That afternoon, I drove to Marissa's office building and waited in the parking garage. I felt like a stalker, but I needed to see her face when she didn't know I was watching. I needed to understand who she really was when she wasn't performing the role of my wife. She came out at 5:30, walking with her friend Karina Rodriguez from accounting. They were laughing about something, heads bent together like schoolgirls sharing secrets. I followed them at a distance as they walked to a wine bar 3 blocks away. I found a table in the back corner where I could hear their conversation without being seen. What I heard made my stomach turn. So, how was your afternoon delight? Karina asked, grinning like she was asking about the weather. Incredible, Marissa said, practically purring. Devin has this way of making me feel like I'm the only woman in the world. When he looks at me, it's like he's seeing something Joel never even notices. Doesn't it feel weird, though? Cheating on your husband? Marissa shrugged. Joel and I are more like roommates than lovers at this point. He works, I work, we split the bills and watch Netflix. There's no passion, no excitement. With Devin, I feel like myself again. But what if Joel finds out? Joel won't find out because Joel doesn't pay attention. He's too busy being responsible and mature and all those other boring things that make him a good provider and a terrible lover. Karina laughed. You're awful. I'm honest, Marissa corrected. I married Joel because he was safe and stable, and I thought that's what I wanted. Turns out what I actually wanted was someone who could make my pulse race. So what's the end game here? You can't keep both of them forever. Marissa swirled her wine thoughtfully. I don't know yet. Devin's not exactly husband material. He's got that gym, and he's focused on building his business. But Joel's getting boring. All he talks about is work and home improvement projects. When's the last time he surprised me with anything exciting? I thought about the flowers and jewelry I'd bought her yesterday, the surprise that had turned into the worst moment of my life. Maybe you should give him a chance, Karina suggested. Tell him what you need. I've tried. He just doesn't get it. Yesterday he texted me about some work thing, and all I could think was how different it felt when Devin texted me. Devin sends me pictures and tells me he's thinking about me. Joel sends me grocery lists. They talked for another hour. I learned that Devin owned a gym called Iron Paradise in Cambridge. I learned that they'd been meeting at the Marriott on Route 9 every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. I learned that Marissa had told her sister and at least 3 friends about the affair, and they all thought it was exciting and romantic instead of devastating and wrong. I also learned that she'd been using our joint credit card to pay for her hotel visits. My money. My hard-earned money from all those late nights at the office, funding my wife's betrayal. When I got back to Pete's apartment, I was shaking with anger. Easy there, Pete said, looking up from the carburetor he was rebuilding at his kitchen table. What did you find out? I told him everything. The wine bar conversation, the hotel receipts, the friends who knew and approved. Pete listened, occasionally muttering curses under his breath. Okay, he said when I finished. Now you know what you're dealing with. Question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. Divorce her, I guess. Take my losses and start over. You could do that, Pete agreed, or you could make sure she understands exactly what she's throwing away before you let her throw it away. What do you mean? Pete smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. I mean, maybe it's time for Marissa to learn that actions have consequences. Maybe it's time for her to find out what happens when the boring, responsible husband stops being boring and responsible. I'm not going to do anything illegal, Pete. Who said anything about illegal? I'm talking about creative. I'm talking about making sure that when this is all over, she remembers why she married you in the first place. I stared at him. You want me to fight for her. I want you to fight for yourself, Pete corrected. I want you to stop apologizing for being a good man and start making her apologize for not appreciating one. That night, I lay awake on Pete's couch and thought about everything I'd learned. My wife was having an affair with her college ex-boyfriend. She was using my money to pay for it. She told her friends and family about it, and they all thought it was justified because I was boring. For 6 years, I'd tried to be the husband I thought she wanted, stable, reliable, hardworking, devoted. And apparently what she actually wanted was someone who would make her pulse race. Fine. I could make her pulse race. But probably not in the way she was expecting. The next morning, I did something I'd never done in 6 years of marriage. I called in sick when I wasn't sick, and I went hunting for information about Devon Mason. Iron Paradise was located in a converted warehouse in Cambridge, all exposed brick and industrial lighting, the kind of place that charged premium prices for the privilege of lifting weights in a deliberately unfinished space. Through the front windows, I could see rows of expensive equipment and walls covered with motivational posters featuring impossibly muscled models. I paid for a day pass and spent 2 hours working out while listening to conversations around me. It didn't take long to get a sense of who Devon was and how he operated. He was exactly what I'd expected. 6'2", perfectly sculpted, with the kind of tan that came from spending serious money at high-end salons. He wore designer workout clothes that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and he moved through the gym like he owned it, which technically he did, but more importantly, I learned that Devon had a type: married women. Specifically, married women who were bored with their husbands and looking for excitement. Devon's got game, I overheard one of the trainers telling another. He's got like 3 or 4 regulars who come in for personal training sessions. Personal training, the other guy laughed. Is that what we're calling it now? Hey, whatever keeps the lights on, right? These suburban housewives pay premium rates for premium service. I spent the rest of the week gathering intelligence. I learned Devon's schedule, his habits, his weaknesses. I learned that he lived in an expensive apartment in Back Bay that he probably couldn't actually afford. I learned that his gym was struggling financially despite its upscale appearance. Most importantly, I learned that Devon Mason was exactly the kind of guy who bragged about his conquests, including my wife. On Thursday afternoon, I followed Devon and Marissa to their usual hotel. I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, watching cars come and go, thinking about the man I used to be and the man I was becoming. The old Joel would have confronted them directly, demanded explanations, tried to work things out like a mature adult. The new Joel had different plans. I used my IT skills to do some research on Devon's business, public records, social media, online reviews. What I found was interesting. Iron Paradise was 3 months behind on rent. Devon had defaulted on 2 business loans in the past year. He was barely keeping his head above water financially, which explained why he was so eager to accept money from married women looking for excitement. I also discovered that Devon was not as discreet as he thought he was. His social media accounts were full of barely concealed references to his affairs. Photos of expensive dinners with captions like treating a special lady to the night she deserves. Pictures of hotel room service with comments about afternoon meetings with VIP clients. My wife wasn't his only victim, she was just his latest. That evening, I went back to Pete's apartment and told him what I'd learned. "So what's the play?" Pete asked. "I'm going to destroy him," I said simply. Pete raised an eyebrow. "Legally, right?" "Completely legally. I'm going to use the truth to destroy him, and then I'm going to use the truth to destroy her." "I like the sound of that. What do you need?" "Your expertise in surveillance and your complete lack of moral qualms about revenge." Pete grinned. "You've come to the right place." We spent the weekend planning. Pete had contacts from his police days who could help with certain technical aspects of information gathering. I had skills in digital research and data analysis that could be useful in other ways. Together, we mapped out a strategy that would expose Devon and Marissa's affair in the most public and humiliating way possible. The first phase involved Devon's gym. I created several fake social media accounts and began posting detailed reviews of Iron Paradise that focused on Devon's special services for married clients. I was careful to stick to facts that could be verified: the expensive personal training rates, the private sessions, the flexible scheduling for afternoon appointments. I also did some digging into Devon's business practices and discovered that he was operating without several required licenses and permits. Anonymous tips to the appropriate city agencies resulted in surprise inspections that found multiple violations. But the real masterstroke came when I hacked into the gym's sound system. It wasn't really hacking. Devon used the same password for everything, and his social media accounts made it easy to guess. His mother's maiden name plus his birth year. Amateur. On Tuesday afternoon, when I knew Devon and Marissa would be at their usual hotel, I programmed the gym's PA system to play a very special announcement during the peak workout hours. "Attention Iron Paradise members," the automated voice announced. "This is a reminder that personal training sessions with married clients should focus on fitness goals, not personal relationships. Management would like to remind all trainers that professional boundaries are important for maintaining our reputation in the community." Then, in Marissa's voice, taken from a voicemail she'd left me months earlier and edited together, the system played, "Devon, you're so much better than my husband. Thank you for making me feel special." The gym erupted in laughter and whispered conversations. By the time Devin returned from his appointment, half his membership had heard the announcement and was asking uncomfortable questions about his business practices. I watched from the parking lot as Devin stormed into the gym and started screaming at his staff about security breaches. I watched him check the sound system, examine the computer controls, and gradually realized that someone had deliberately humiliated him. That's when he spotted me sitting in my car, and our eyes met through the windshield. Devin marched across the parking lot like a man going to war. He yanked open my car door and leaned down to get in my face. "You son of a bitch," he snarled. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "I'm sitting in a public parking lot," I said calmly. "Is there a problem?" "You know exactly what the problem is. That was you, wasn't it? The PA system?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." Devin grabbed my shirt and pulled me halfway out of the car. "Listen to me, you pathetic piece of shit. Stay away from my gym, stay away from my business, and stay away from me, or you're going to regret it." I looked down at his hands on my shirt, then back up at his face. "Take your hands off me, Devin." "Or what?" "Or I'll call the police and report that you're assaulting me in front of a dozen witnesses." Devin looked around and realized that several people had stopped to watch our confrontation. He released my shirt but didn't back away. "This isn't over," he said. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not." That night, Marissa came home for the first time since I'd overheard her phone call. I'd been staying at Pete's, but I still had a key to our house, and I'd been checking periodically to make sure everything was secure. She was waiting for me in the living room when I walked in. "We need to talk," she said. "Do we?" "Joel, I know you're upset about something. You've been acting strange, staying out all night. If there's a problem between us, we should discuss it like adults." I studied her face. She looked genuinely confused, like she couldn't imagine what might be bothering me. Either she was a better actress than I'd given her credit for, or she was so deep in her own delusions that she couldn't see the obvious. "How was your day?" I asked. "Fine. Normal. Why?" "How's Devin?" The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like someone who'd been caught in a lie so big that she couldn't figure out how to begin explaining it. Then she recovered. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. "Devin Mason, your college boyfriend, the one you've been sleeping with for 3 months. The one you met at the hotel on Route 9 this afternoon while I was at work earning the money you used to pay for the room." Marissa stared at me for a long time. I could see her mind working, calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. Finally, she sighed. "How long have you known?" "Does it matter?" "Joel, I can explain." "No," I interrupted. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. There's no justification that turns 3 months of lies into something forgivable. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're bored with our marriage, so you decided to have an affair with your ex-boyfriend. You used my money to pay for it, you told your friends and family about it, and you laughed about how clueless I was." Marissa's eyes filled with tears. "I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen, and now we have to deal with the consequences." "What does that mean?" I pulled a folder from my jacket and set it on the coffee table between us. "It means you have a choice to make. We can end this marriage quietly and amicably, or we can end it publicly and messily. Your call." She opened the folder and found copies of credit card receipts, hotel records, and screenshots of text messages between her and Devin. Her face went white. "How did you?" "It doesn't matter how. What matters is that I have evidence of everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every dollar you spent on your affair. Joel, please. We can work this out. I'll end things with Devin. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." "No," I said. "We can't. Because this isn't a problem that needs fixing. This is a choice you made. And now I'm making a choice too." I stood up to leave, then turned back to her. "By the way," I said, "you might want to call Devin and make sure he's okay. He seemed upset about something when I saw him earlier." For the first time since I'd known her, Marissa looked genuinely afraid. Good. It was about time she understood what fear felt like. The next few days were a blur of strategic moves and carefully planned revenge. I'd taken a week of vacation time from work, telling my boss I was dealing with a family emergency, which was true in a way. Pete and I worked like a military unit planning a campaign. He handled the surveillance and intelligence gathering while I focused on digital warfare and psychological manipulation. We were both surprised by how good I was at being devious. "You've got a real talent for this," Pete said as he watched me create fake social media profiles designed to look like Devin's other affair partners. "Maybe you missed your calling. Maybe I just needed the right motivation." The fake profiles were masterpieces of subtle destruction. I created accounts for Sarah M., and Jennifer K., and Michelle R., all supposedly married women who had been personally trained by Devin at Iron Paradise. The posts were carefully crafted to sound authentic while revealing just enough information to be damaging. Thanks for the amazing workout session, Devin. My husband has no idea why I'm suddenly so flexible. Best personal trainer in Boston. Devin really knows how to work out all my tension. Iron Paradise is worth every penny. Devin's afternoon sessions are exactly what this bored housewife needed. I made sure the posts were visible to anyone who searched for Iron Paradise or Devin Mason. Within 48 hours, the gym's online reputation was in shambles. The review section was flooded with comments from real customers who were disgusted by the implications of Devin's special services. But that was just the beginning. I also discovered that Devin had been bragging about his conquests on a private Instagram account that he thought was secure. Screenshots of text messages from married women, photos of expensive gifts they'd bought him, even pictures of hotel room keys with captions like, "Another satisfied customer." My wife wasn't just one of his victims, she was one of his trophies. I downloaded everything and sent anonymous packages to the husbands of the other women Devin was seeing. Let them deal with their own cheating wives while I dealt with mine. Meanwhile, Marissa was falling apart. She'd tried calling me dozens of times, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading to threatening. She'd enlisted her sister Chloe to act as a mediator, but I refused to take Chloe's calls. She'd even shown up at my office, but security escorted her out when I told them I was being harassed by an estranged spouse. The turning point came on Friday evening. I was having dinner at a sports bar near Pete's shop when Devin walked in with two guys who looked like they spent more time in the gym than I spent at work. He spotted me immediately and walked over to my table. "We need to talk," he said. "I'm eating," I replied without looking up from my burger. "My business is ruined because of you. I've lost half my membership in 3 days." "That's terrible. Have you considered offering better customer service?" One of Devin's friends stepped forward. "Maybe you didn't hear him. He said you need to talk." I looked up at the three of them, Devin and his muscle-bound backup singers, trying to intimidate me in a crowded restaurant. It was almost funny. "And maybe you didn't hear me," I said. "I'm eating." "Your little computer tricks aren't going to save you forever," Devin said. "Sooner or later, you're going to have to face the consequences of screwing with the wrong guy." "Consequences?" I laughed. "You want to talk about consequences? Let's talk about the consequences of sleeping with another man's wife. Let's talk about the consequences of running a gym like a brothel. Let's talk about the consequences of being stupid enough to document your crimes on social media." Devin's face turned red. "You don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and showed him a screenshot of his private Instagram account. His face went white. "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know about Sarah Mitchell and Jennifer Kim and Michelle Rodriguez. I know about the hotel receipts and the gift cards and the text messages. I know everything, Devin. And soon, everyone else will too." "You're bluffing." "Am I? Check your email when you get home. I sent you something special." I'd actually sent him a video compilation of all his social media posts about his affairs, set to music, and edited like a movie trailer. The subject line was, "Coming soon to a divorce court near you." Devin grabbed my shirt again, just like he had in the gym parking lot. But this time, we weren't alone. "Hey!" the bartender shouted from across the room. "Take it outside or I'm calling the cops." Several other customers had turned to watch our confrontation. Devin realized he was making a scene and let go of my shirt. "This isn't over," he said for the second time in a week. "You keep saying that," I replied. "But it is over. Your business is finished. Your reputation is destroyed. And my wife is about to learn what happens when she chooses the wrong side in a war." As Devin and his friends walked away, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Power. Control. The satisfaction of watching someone who'd wronged me face the consequences of their actions. I was starting to understand why people enjoyed revenge. That weekend, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I'd been saving the best for last. A comprehensive dossier of evidence that would destroy both Devin and Marissa simultaneously. The package I prepared included credit card statements showing Marissa's hotel payments, screenshots of text messages between Marissa and Devin, photos of them together at various locations, evidence of Devin's other affairs, documentation of Iron Paradise's business violations, a timeline of their relationship with dates and locations. I made copies for Marissa's boss, her parents, her sister, and her closest friends. I also prepared a version for my lawyer that would support my divorce filing and ensure I kept as much of our shared assets as possible. But before I sent anything, I decided to give Marissa one last chance to come clean. I called her and asked her to meet me at the coffee shop where we'd had our first date 6 years earlier. She agreed immediately, probably thinking I was ready to forgive and forget. She was wrong. When she arrived, she looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair that hadn't been styled in days, clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. The stress of keeping her lies straight was finally catching up to her. "Joel," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Thank God you called. We need to fix this." "Do we?" "Of course we do. I made a mistake, but it's over now. I ended things with Devin. We can start fresh." "When did you end things with Devin?" "Yesterday, as soon as I realized how much I was hurting you." I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo I'd taken that morning of Devin's car parked outside our house. "That's interesting," I said, "because his car was in our driveway 3 hours ago." Marissa stared at the photo, then at me. "Joel, I can explain." "Stop," I interrupted. "Just stop lying. I know about the hotel. I know about the credit cards. I know about the 3 months of lies and the friends who helped you cover it up. I know about Devin's other women and his failing business and his private Instagram account where he posts pictures of the married women he's sleeping with." "How do you—" "It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that I know everything, and now you need to decide what you want to do about it." I slid a manila envelope across the table. "Divorce papers. You can sign them voluntarily, or you can fight me in court and have all of this evidence become public record." Marissa opened the envelope with shaking hands. "Joel, please, don't do this. I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love the house I pay for and the lifestyle I make possible. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 3 months humiliating me with your ex-boyfriend." "It wasn't about humiliating you. It was exactly about humiliating me. You and Devin and Chloe and all your friends had a good laugh about how clueless I was, how boring and predictable and easy to fool." Tears started running down her face. "That's not true." "It's completely true. And now you're going to learn what happens when the boring, predictable husband stops being boring and predictable." I stood up to leave, then turned back one last time. "You have 24 hours to decide. Sign the papers voluntarily, or I start sending packages to everyone you know. Your choice." As I walked away, I heard her calling my name, but I didn't look back. I was done looking back. The war was almost over, and I was going to win. Marissa chose to fight. I should have expected it. She'd spent our entire marriage getting her way through a combination of tears, manipulation, and emotional blackmail. Why would she change tactics now? The call came from her lawyer on Monday morning, some hotshot divorce attorney from downtown Boston who specialized in protecting women's rights in difficult separations. Apparently, Marissa was claiming that I had been emotionally abusive throughout our marriage and that her affair was a cry for help from a desperate woman trapped in a loveless relationship. "Mr. Price," the lawyer said in a voice that dripped condescension, "my client is prepared to be reasonable about this separation, but she needs certain assurances about her financial security and living arrangements." "What kind of assurances?" "She'll need to remain in the marital home while we work out the details. She'll also need continued access to your joint accounts to maintain her standard of living. And of course, she'll need assurance that you won't continue your campaign of harassment against her and Mr. Mason." I almost laughed. "Harassment?" "The social media posts, the business interference, the stalking behavior. My client has documented everything, Mr. Price. If this continues, we'll be forced to seek a restraining order." "That's interesting," I said, "because I have documentation too. Would you like me to send you copies?" There was a pause. "What kind of documentation?" "The kind that proves your client has been using marital assets to fund a 3-month affair with her ex-boyfriend. The kind that shows she's been lying to me, to you, and probably to herself about what really happened in this marriage." Another pause, longer this time. "Mr. Price, I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot." "No," I interrupted. "We're exactly where we need to be. Your client made her choice when she decided to humiliate me instead of talking to me. Now she gets to live with the consequences." I hung up and immediately called my own lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in men's rights in divorce proceedings. I'd hired her the week before, and she'd been reviewing my evidence package with barely concealed glee. "They're going to play hardball," she told me, "but we have them dead to rights. The financial infidelity alone is enough to ensure you keep the majority of your assets. The adultery is just icing on the cake." "What about the house?" "Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state, but judges still consider conduct when dividing assets. A wife who uses marital funds to pay for hotel rooms where she cheats on her husband isn't going to get much sympathy." "Good. What's our next move?" "We file our response to their demands and include your evidence package as supporting documentation. Then we sit back and watch them scramble." But I wasn't content to sit back and watch. I had one more card to play, and it was going to be spectacular. That evening, I drove to our house, my house, and let myself in with my key. Marissa was in the living room with Chloe, both of them surrounded by legal documents and empty wine glasses. They looked up when I walked in like they'd seen a ghost. "Joel," Marissa said, her voice shaky, "what are you doing here?" "I live here," I said simply. "Or did you forget that my name is on the deed?" "My lawyer said you can't be here without permission. Your lawyer is wrong. This is my house, bought with my money, and I have every legal right to be here." Chloe stood up, trying to look intimidating. "Marissa doesn't want you here, Joel. You need to leave." I looked at Chloe. Really looked at her. For the first time since this whole thing started. She was 2 years younger than Marissa, but looked older, with the kind of hard expression that came from years of bad decisions and worse relationships. She'd been divorced twice, lived in a studio apartment she could barely afford, and worked part-time at a nail salon. And she was giving me advice about my marriage. "Chloe," I said pleasantly, "shut up." She blinked in surprise. I'd never spoken to her that way before. I'd always been polite, respectful, eager to get along with Marissa's family. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. This is between me and my wife. You can stay and listen, or you can leave. But you don't get to tell me what to do in my own house." Marissa started crying again. "Joel, please. We can work this out. I know I made mistakes." "Mistakes?" I laughed, and it wasn't a nice sound. "Marissa, you didn't make mistakes. You made choices. You chose to sleep with Devin. You chose to use my money to pay for it. You chose to lie to me for 3 months. You chose to tell your friends and family about it so they could all have a good laugh at my expense." "That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened, and now you're choosing to fight me in court instead of taking responsibility for what you've done." I pulled out my phone and showed them both a screenshot of the email I'd sent an hour earlier. "I just sent evidence packages to your boss, your parents, your friends, and everyone else who matters in your life. By tomorrow morning, everyone you know will understand exactly what kind of person you really are." Marissa went white. "You didn't." "I did. And that's not all." I showed them another screenshot, this one of a Facebook post I'd scheduled to go live at midnight. "I'm also going public with the whole story. Names, dates, evidence, everything. By tomorrow, everyone in our social circle will know that Marissa Price cheated on her husband with her ex-boyfriend and used her husband's money to pay for it." "Joel, you can't do this," Chloe said. "This will ruin her reputation." "Good," I replied. "She ruined my marriage. Turnabout is fair play?" Marissa was sobbing now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret, no desire to comfort her. She'd burned through all of my compassion over the past 3 months of lies. "There's one way to stop it," I said. "What?" Marissa asked desperately. "Sign the divorce papers, tonight. Give me everything I'm asking for, the house, the savings, the retirement accounts. Take your clothes and your car and walk away quietly." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed again. "You want to talk about fair? Was it fair when you were screwing Devin in hotel rooms I paid for? Was it fair when you were laughing about how stupid I was with your sister and your friends? Was it fair when you decided to destroy our marriage instead of talking to me about whatever problems we were having?" I leaned forward, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I let my anger show. "You made your choice, Marissa. You chose Devin over me. You chose excitement over stability. You chose lies over truth. And now you get to live with the consequences of those choices." The room was quiet except for the sound of Marissa crying. Chloe looked like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, Marissa spoke. "What if I sign the papers? Will you cancel the posts?" "No," I said. The posts go live either way. The only difference is whether you walk away with something or nothing." "Joel, please. You had 3 months to think about what you were doing to our marriage. You had 3 months to consider the consequences. You had 3 months to choose me over him." I stood up to leave. "You chose him. Now live with it." As I reached the door, I heard Chloe say, "You're being cruel, Joel." I turned back one last time. "No, Chloe, I'm being honest. Marissa is the one who was cruel. I'm just making sure everyone knows it." I walked out of my house for the last time, leaving behind 6 years of marriage and any illusions I'd ever had about love, trust, or happily ever after. At midnight, my Facebook post went live. By morning, it had been shared hundreds of times and commented on by dozens of people we knew. The response was overwhelmingly supportive. Apparently, a lot of people had suspected something was wrong with our marriage, but hadn't known how to bring it up. Marissa's reputation was destroyed overnight. Her boss called her into a meeting and suggested she might want to look for employment elsewhere. Her parents stopped taking her calls. Her friends distanced themselves from the scandal. Devon's gym closed permanently 2 weeks later. Turns out that when your business model depends on married women feeling comfortable in your establishment, being exposed as a serial adulterer is bad for the bottom line. 3 months later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office signing the final divorce decree. Marissa had eventually agreed to my terms, but only after her own lawyer advised her that fighting would just make things worse for her. "How do you feel?" Patricia asked as I signed the last document. "Free," I said, and I meant it. I kept the house, the savings, and my retirement. Marissa walked away with her car, her clothes, and a brutal lesson about betrayal. She tried living with Chloe, but it fell apart fast, and Devon's comeback died the moment people recognized his name. What I gained mattered more. I learned I could be ruthless when it counted, and that being a good man didn't mean being an easy target. 6 months later, I ran into Marissa in a grocery store. She looked worn down and finally apologized. I wished her well, and meant it, not because I forgave her, but because I didn't care enough to hate her anymore. I left feeling lighter than I had in years. The anger was gone. I drove back to my house and started planning a future built on self-respect, loyalty, and choosing the right person every day. The old Joel died the day I heard her brag. The new Joel was done being anyone's second choice, and for the first time in ages, I was excited for what came next.